In this video, how to increase emotional intelligence using the DISC assessment. Hi, I'm Ron with LeadSkill. We help leaders and their teams increase their emotional intelligence. Now, there are many ways to increase or develop your emotional intelligence. We've talked about some of them in our videos here on this channel. One that I haven't seen mentioned very often that is particularly powerful is the DISC assessment. William Moulton Marston got the credit for inventing DISC, as well as the character Wonder Woman. Now, of course, he had help on both counts. The fact is, he described DISC as a model in his 1928 book, The Emotions of Normal People. It was Walter Clark in the 1940s who developed the first assessment tool, though, that measures DISC in terms of behavioral or activity vectors, he called it at the time. And since Walter Clark, many people have come out with different DISC tools or assessments on the market. Marston analyzed behavior along two axes, and he linked it with particular emotions. The real power of DISC is that it helps us describe a range of emotions and behaviors using a common language. Fear, anger, joy, and calmness are some of the primary emotions. There's aggression, sadness, surprise, and disgust. Those are some others. When you start observing emotions like a scientist would, just listening and watching and observing, just paying attention, your social awareness increases. Now, social awareness is one of the main dimensions of emotional intelligence. Marston tried to be as descriptive as possible. Scientific is a good word for his attempt to describe emotion. He steered away from commonly used emotion words like fear, rage, etc., because it's really hard to be objective about such strong emotions. And his emphasis was on normal emotions, not when we're hijacked or carried away by our emotions. He came up with words like dominance, inducement or influence, submission or steadiness, and compliance to describe four different very distinct responses to external events and people, whether they're being aggressive toward us or whether they are being friendly, and how we respond behaviorally and also emotionally. When you take those four terms, the first letter of each, dominance, inducement, submission, compliance, they spell DISC, and that's where the DISC assessment gets its name from. Most people who take the DISC assessment experience some degree of greater awareness. This greater self-awareness is another key aspect of emotional intelligence. And so just by taking the DISC assessment, there's a potential to increase your self-awareness, your understanding about your own emotions, your own behavior style, and also that of other people. Other people is the aspect that we would call social awareness. Not all DISC assessments are constructed the same, and the quality of the feedback isn't equally good, but the best DISC tools on the market are accurate and give us timely and impactful snapshots of ourselves. And what DISC does is it systematizes our observations of ourselves and of other people so that we can notice nonverbal behavior as well as listen to how people say things and how they act. With greater awareness, you can adapt your speech, the speed of your talking, and your tone toward others, which is what social regulation is all about. And you guessed it, another key dimension of emotional intelligence. Now, briefly, here's how you can use DISC, even if you've never done the assessment or if it's been a long time. When it comes to problems or challenges, there's two different styles. There's direct and reflective. Each one of those has a distinct way of approaching challenging situations. Someone who's direct is going to charge right at it. They're going to be dominant, like in Marston's model. And that has some behavioral strengths because in the face of challenges, sometimes things are such a nature that they need immediate attention. They need someone to charge headlong into battle. People with a direct style, though, sometimes are perceived as being intimidating or even aggressive. So a point of self-awareness might be that if I'm direct, I need to watch if I'm getting some body language from other people. If they're just slowly backing up, if their eyes are getting big, and tone down my intensity sometimes whenever I need to bring the rest of the team along and be on the same page together. If you're reflective in how you approach problems and challenges, you like to sit back and study the situation. You want a little bit of time, and you're not so inclined to tackle it head on. And so one of your strengths would be you take a more considered approach. You may need to pick up the pace, though, at times. You may need to face some things directly and head on. That's one way that you can adapt. And with greater self-awareness, you can actually exercise behavioral adaptation that way. The second key area that DISC helps us with is dealing with people or making contact with other people. The two different styles here is outgoing or reserved. So someone who is reserved is actually going to be quieter, more introverted, and take an approach that is maybe more comfortable dealing with just one-on-one or even at arm's length, at a little bit of a distance. People who are reserved get energy from being alone. And so if they're spending a lot of time extroverting or in social occasions, they're going to feel their energy drained. On the other hand, people who are outgoing are upbeat. They look forward to social interactions. They may, in fact, be seen as too bubbly and too exuberant at times. But as long as we know what our particular strength and our style is, we can use it in situations where it will work to our advantage, and also learn to adapt it whenever the situation calls for something else. The third area that DISC helps us with is noticing the pace that people move at or how consistent they are. And so the two different contrasting styles that we see here is people who are steady and people who are dynamic. So if you're dynamic, you're very fast-paced, you like change and variety, and it's not really hard to pick up the pace whenever there's a need for that. In fact, often you may be going faster than other people are comfortable with, and you sometimes might even get criticized for going too fast or introducing too much change too fast. People who are steady, on the other hand, are usually those rock-solid team players. They're quiet in meetings, but they tend to be the glue that holds the team together. And they are consistent. They follow through on their promises. They tend to be very good at following the process and keeping the ship steady, keeping it balanced. And so those are strengths that they bring, and sometimes not often acknowledged. The fourth area is procedures and constraints. So the two styles that we consider here is pioneering on the one hand and precise. So someone who is precise when it comes to procedures and constraints has a very high quality consciousness. They follow the rules. They expect other people to share that same commitment to quality. They like to have the data. They want to know what the rule book is. And if there isn't a rule book, it needs to be defined. We have to document our procedures and make sure that they're communicated with everyone. People who are pioneering, on the other hand, don't like rules. They throw out the rule book and they go off trailblazing in new directions. And so if you put them in an environment where they have to follow rules, they have to do things to a very high consistency, same amount of quality and standards, they're going to feel very constrained. It's going to be very difficult for them to be highly successful in that kind of environment because it just drains them day after day after day. Can they adapt to it and do that at times? Sure. But to do it day in, day out is going to be really challenging. That's a really quick overview of the different DISC styles and how they can help us in terms of emotional intelligence. We want to increase both our awareness of ourself and other people, and also learn to adapt, that's self-regulation, as well as use social skills, social regulation, in working with other people. Many people who have taken the DISC assessment have a brief experience of the tool, and then they move on, and the impression fades over time. People who are serious, though, about improving or increasing their emotional intelligence might want to give this tool a second look and reconsider how many unexplored uses there are for this powerful assessment tool. Now, if you're interested yourself in exploring the DISC tool and it's either been a long time or you've never done it, get in touch with me in the comments. I've got links that you can ask me to do a sample DISC tool with you. Or maybe you're interested in emotional intelligence. We have an EQ tool as well. And I'd like to hear in the comments, what was the best part or the most helpful thing in the video that we shared about either emotional intelligence or DISC? Give us comments down below, and I'll look forward to seeing you in our next video.